Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another WSAE Tech Tips, monthly Tech Tips. My name is Aaron Nettles with Vorsite Corporation. I'm actually one of the co-founders of Vorsite and CEO. Today, what we're going to talk about is, what is Azure and why should you care as a business owner? We're going to keep this at a very high level. I want to make sure that everyone today leaves with a good understanding of what Azure is and how it actually can benefit your business, not from a technical standpoint, but from an operational and cost perspective. So I'm excited to get started today, and let's get going. So a little bit about Vorsite. Vorsite is an Office 365 managed service provider. We haven't always been that. But we've always been in the cutting edge of technology consulting for the past 16 years. We've helped more than 200 businesses migrate or adopt Office 365 to help run their business. And our core expertise these days are around advisory services, support, training, security, compliance, migration, and adoption, end user adoption. A little bit about today's event. If you haven't attended some of our other sessions, I believe this is our fourth or fifth tech tip. Vorsite has partnered with WSAE as well as Microsoft. Our goal is, it's a program put together by Microsoft, and Vorsite worked with Microsoft. We recruited WSAE, and what we wanted to do was bring a series of educational tech tips to small businesses on how current technology solutions can help them operate more efficiently. Basically, how can they save cost and be more efficient throughout their businesses leveraging technology. These webinars will go through February of 2018. That's when our last one will be. Our next upcoming webinar is on Outlook 2016. If you haven't already registered, you should, and you can register on the link there on the screen in front of you. And I'm happy to announce that today we are recording this session, and I hope we should be able to get the recorded session of today's webinar in your hands within the next 24 hours. Okay, so what's kind of the agenda for today? We're first going to cover a couple of terms. We won't go too deep into these, but I want to set the stage. So there's going to be some terms that we use throughout the presentation today. So we're just going to level set, get you guys up to speed on those so that everyone's on the same page as we move through the presentation today. We'll obviously talk about what is Azure, why should you care as a business owner, common cloud strategies. What this is going to focus on is every business, whether they believe it or whether they realize it or not, they have some reason why they're adopting the cloud for their business. And today I'm just going to share with you some of the common ones that I see businesses talking about when they decide to use Azure. Maybe some of those will resonate with you today on the call. We'll also talk about some of the common uses, like, what are some of the business problems companies are actually solving? Once again, not talking about it from a technology standpoint, but what problem in your business or what enhancements are you making to your business when you think of Azure? And we'll talk about some of the most common ones that we see throughout the SMB in the market today. I'll also give you an example of an Azure quote. I thought this might be interesting for you all to see. Once you see some of the common business cases, we'll then take a real look at a quote that I actually did for a customer and give you an idea of, is this really less expensive? Is it more expensive? But give you a real world visual to what some of the cost of what Azure is in one particular instance. We'll talk about some customer success stories, and then obviously we'll finish up with Q&A. So the terms that I want to get us all familiar with today, looking over at the far right, the cloud. No, I don't think we have any reason to really go over that at this point. I think everyone is on the same page as far as, what do we mean by the cloud? What is a good definition for the cloud? one that might be new to you, let's jump all the way over to the left here, my left, is on-premise. So on-premise might be a new term to some of you. And what on-premise means is really before the cloud came, we all purchased and built out our corporate networks the same. When you had to buy hardware, you went to Dell.com, you went to HP, you went to Office Max, wherever you bought this hardware. You took it back to your company, you put it on a desk, and your IT guy spun it up, put software on it, and then connected that to your network, right? So on-premise really just means the traditional way of how we purchased and built out networks before the cloud. That's all on-premise means. It's kind of before. Hybrid is a combination of taking the traditional hardware network capabilities and combining that with some of the cloud. And that's where Azure really excels. Azure really excels for businesses, and we'll get into these scenarios. Azure really excels when you want to keep some of your existing operations or infrastructure the way that it is, but you want to adopt certain pieces of the cloud for efficiency reasons or cost reasons, or even go to market. Okay, so what is Azure? This is interesting. It's been we've been working with the cloud for about 8 years now. And, we specialize in the Microsoft technology specifically. And when I went to look for this definition of what is Azure, I just happened to go to their website after, years and say, how does Microsoft define Azure after 8 years? It's changed a little bit. And this was probably the best description I've ever seen, not only out of Microsoft, but anybody. But Microsoft did a really good job. But it's a collection of integrated cloud services that developers, IT professionals use to build, deploy, or manage applications through a global network of data centers. Maybe that resonates with you, maybe it doesn't, but it really is a good description that, these services are designed for the IT community, to be honest with you, right? It's for developers, it's for the IT pros. It's designed for them to build more efficient, cost-effective solutions and deploy those quicker, get to market quicker, and lower the cost of management, right? So once again, a cost-saving measure. So it's designed for the IT pros, but they really should be adopting this to lower the overall cost for the business. And that's why I think it's important for the business owners that are on the call today to understand the value of this. It's not designed for you guys to necessarily tinker with or play with on a daily basis, but you should be working with a provider who is looking to the future for your overall, cost-saving capabilities in the future. So why is it important? I kind of already talked a little bit about it, but we'll just go through these bullets real quick. So this actually removes the need of purchasing hardware. So maybe you're looking at your business right now and you're looking at a quote. Maybe there's a server that has crashed, maybe a hard drive that's crashed, maybe a server that is 7 years old or 8 years old. Whatever that reason may be, there's some sort of new hardware that needs to be purchased. You may want to take a step back and say, what would this look like in Azure? Or I'll even plug AWS a little bit here. But how can we maybe look at this from a different perspective? It is another way of looking at it. It's almost like renting hardware as well, because you may have a need for specific hardware or services in your business today that you don't actually need for the entire year. Maybe you only need it for 3 months. Maybe you only need it for 6 months. That's what's another great benefit is you can once you use these resources, you then can turn them off and no longer incur the cost. Pay-as-you-go model. So you do have once again, capability of swiping that credit card, turning it on, turn it off, no more charges. Because of this capability, it also lets you scale your business much more quickly. You don't have the procurement process, right? The traditional way of doing IT, let's call it on-premise, there's a procurement process, an operational component that takes maybe 14 days to get that. What does that do to your timeline if you're trying to do a marketing campaign or you're trying to roll out a new product or service? So adopting the cloud can get you to market much quicker. I always like to focus on lowering the operating costs, especially when talking to business owners, because I think this is one that only we can really understand. Unless you're working with an IT professional who is really looking at the bottom line and willing to look at their hard cost of what they cost to your organization, I think it's really tough for you to truly understand what maybe the operating cost of doing things on-prem and how much of that is removed, how much of that cost is removed when you go to the cloud. So I do encourage you that the lowering the operating cost is a big one, but I do believe it needs to come from either the owner, maybe somebody at the operational level, the accounting level, is probably someone who's really going to understand that true cost of what it is today versus tomorrow. That cost savings can be redirected into other areas of your business, once again, and finally wrapping it up, your competition is doing this, right? So when your competition is already doing this, you have to ask yourself, are they able to save on certain operational costs and redirect that into marketing campaigns, therefore giving them a competitive advantage in the market? So staying on the same topic of what Azure is, I don't expect any one of us to really spend too much time on this particular slide, but I do want to give you an idea from a breadth standpoint. Focused over here on the left-hand side, Microsoft Azure is really broken up into four major, let's say, components, and that is, resources and technology for developers, resources and technology for data and analytics, resources and technology for Internet of Things. I'm sure all of us have maybe picked up a magazine in the last 6 to 12 months and hear about Internet of Things, but basically that is the big industry of smart appliances. I think you can even buy some of these at Home Depot these days, but smart refrigerators where refrigerator detects that you're low on milk, so it automatically orders something from one of the online grocery stores. It's able to appliances in the home are able to detect that they need maintenance, so they order a service ticket from General Electric. So that whole smart appliances, that's the Internet of Things. Microsoft has resources and applications and technology available for that entire industry. The cloud and infrastructure, the reason why this one is kind of built out and expanded is because this is what we're going to focus on today. What I'm talking about today, the value of Azure for us small business owners, is more around the infrastructure, hardware, and you can kind of just read through some of these, compute power, security and management, networking, hybrid operations. So we'll move on from that, but just to give you a visual of what we'll be talking about, as well as the breadth of resources Azure does have available. So when customers come to me, or I'm having conversations with some other providers in the industry at a conference, there really are three common. I thought, once again, I kind of leveraged this, got this information from a Microsoft slide, but it really did resonate with me because it really is consistent that when talking to somebody who calls me or is talking to me about adopting Azure as a service in their business, there's really three categories that their strategy falls in. They're either interested, ready to take some baby steps, right? They're not ready. They don't believe in this whole everything's moving to the cloud business, but they believe the cloud has some kind of value. So what they want to do is they want to take baby steps. And when they take these baby steps, they instantly find themselves in that hybrid solution from an IT perspective. Whether they know it, whether they even realize that term, it doesn't matter. What they're stuck with, as soon as they jump into the cloud with one foot, they now are using their traditional on-premise way of doing things, and now they're dabbling in the cloud, whether that's an Azure component, an Office 360 component, a CRM component, whatever it is. So that's one strategy. Take baby steps, move slow. The other one is a little more advanced. They realize that they have analyzed their business to the point that they say, these pieces are good for the cloud and these pieces just aren't. And it's not about them getting comfortable. It's just that they've spent enough time looking at the different line of business applications, how they service their customers, the regulatory or compliance needs on certain information. But they've just analyzed their business enough that they have a good understanding that these components can go to the cloud, and these components need to stay on premise in their current state. The more experienced and ready to go all in, these are typically early adopters, companies that they were really quick to adopt Office 365, so they've been on this platform for 6-7 years, if not longer. And they've also probably already migrated large portions of their data centers to the cloud. And in some cases, they're actually ready to get rid of, and I'll throw a technical term out there, but they're ready to get rid of their security. And what I mean by that is Active Directory. Active Directory in most organizations will always stay on premise. Well, people that are very experienced and ready to go all in, they're actually making the jump to say, we don't want any more hardware, any more servers. Other than PCs and mobile devices, we want all servers in the cloud, even our Active Directory. And that's a wave that's just starting, I would say, in the last 6 months, where companies are saying, all in, want all servers gone, how do I get there? And they're building roadmaps for that. So, key business scenarios. Another key takeaway I want you guys to walk away from this presentation with is, okay, I get it, I understand, I'm interested, but where can I start? Where should I start? And that's what these scenarios are designed to do, is to hopefully give you some focus of, these are real world problems that you see or have in your business today. And I won't even call them problems, but opportunities you have in your business today. Everyone has some sort of financial application running on a server, or a file server, or, like I said, Active Directory, or a SQL database, or whatever it is. You have some sort of piece of hardware running a very important piece of software in your business. Well, today, if you have to buy new hardware for that device, you actually can take that particular, let's call it a workload, that particular workload, and move it into a virtual machine in Azure. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. But there is a way for you to use virtual machine technology in Azure today to help you remove the need to have to buy new hardware for that existing line of application. And it's probably something really important to you, something you just like, oh my gosh, I cannot possibly remove this, I have to buy new hardware. Well, you take a look, virtual machine might be a good option for you. Data backup. This is an opportunity as well as a possible solution to an existing problem, but some companies don't even have a backup in place for that important data or that important line of business application. They're relying on maybe a tape backup that gets shipped off premise once a quarter, and they've never tested it, and they hope it works if a disaster occurs. and so here's an opportunity where you can look at the cost of something like Azure for just data backup, and it's such a minimal cost to put in place that you may want to leverage this for some of your existing infrastructure today, or a replacement for your current backup process. Disaster recovery, I look at this as more of an opportunity in the SMB. In many cases, SMBs don't have a plan. They literally just don't have any sort of disaster recovery, and the reason why is because it's expensive, and historically has been very expensive and difficult to understand, to be honest with you. Well, Microsoft has made this very easy now through something called site recovery, and getting set up on a disaster recovery service is very, you'll be surprised how inexpensive it is and easy it is to get set up for your business. Web hosting, this just depends on where you host your websites today. If you're building out your own server farm and hosting a massive website because that's what your business relies on, then most definitely you want to take a look at Azure. If you're, outsourcing this and paying a couple $100s a month for a web hoster to do this for you, then I would say I don't necessarily think looking at Azure's web hosting is going to get you anything. But if you have, major portion of your business is ran by a website that you've invested in, and that is sitting in a data center, a bunch of servers, developers, things like that, you most definitely want to take a look at leveraging Azure as a possible partner going forward for hosting that application for you. Okay, so getting into the example of a quote. So let me set the stage a little bit here. So this quote is actually from one of my more advanced customers who is looking to remove their Active Directory, so Windows Server, the only server left in their business right now. They're ready to move that completely to the cloud and go serverless behind their firewall, essentially. And so what we started doing was, obviously, let's just get some cost estimates. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because, we talk so much about, oh, it's so much cheaper, and, you got to do this, your competition in the cloud is so great, and blah, blah, blah. Well, I wanted to be honest and transparent with you guys. So here's a quote that I did in this very first line item. You'll see over here under new server, it gives you an idea of what type of server we were looking at. You'll see here Azure cost next to that, and it says $223 approximately per month. But then over here it says buy new hardware. And you're like, well, wait a minute. If I buy the new hardware, I'd pay almost $100 less per month. So what do you mean this is cheaper? Well, this is what I mean by you have to spend time understanding what does it truly cost you today. And this is where you need a good partner with you. If something fails on this, let's say this new hardware that you buy, from Dell.com, if something fails on that, moving down again here. Find one of my pointers. Can't find my pointer. Anyway, hopefully you guys are following along with me here. But the hardware failure cost, somebody's actually, first off, you're going to have to actually pay for that hardware, the physical hardware. So there's a cost. There is no cost for Azure. Microsoft's replacing that stuff as all inclusive. So that's one line item you need to understand. What about that motherboard? What about that hard drive? What does that cost? Then it's the cost of getting somebody to actually replace that part, right? So there's got to be some cost there. Once again, no cost for Azure, but there is going to be cost if you buy new hardware. This is a big one. So if you actually wanted to back up that new hardware, so it comes in a big box, you set it up on your network, you turn on the lights and it's all go, everything's working. Well, the first thing you don't have is you don't have a backup. Right? There's no backup of that data. That runs for 6 months. It's storing data. It's doing things. There's absolutely no backup of that data. If there is, that means you've had to pay somebody to actually put a backup process in place. Once again, with Azure, because of its global reach and its multiple data centers, that's nothing more than a click of a button and no additional cost. And your data is being backed up in multiple data centers on some regular basis and can be retrieved at some interval of issue if an issue arises. And then an important one that this is new, I've added this recently because if a business was to set up a server behind their firewall today, the first thing they should look at, and I don't think people are, is how is it being secured from cyber threats, right? With the onslaught of cyber threats that are occurring in our businesses, and it's only going to increase, setting up a new piece of hardware without having some sort of threat protection almost seems crazy to me. And to me, this is almost a new cost in the last 12 to 18 months that a company should be looking at. Once again, Azure cost, that's already included because of Microsoft's SLA, because of their size, because of the security concerns, right? We could have a whole webinar just on security. So all that's built in. So hopefully this gives you an idea of at least start thinking when you think of leveraging Azure or using Azure in your business, don't let yourself be push to look for new hardware because that's the only line item that somebody's showing you. So some things you want to look for there. Okay, so we'll just wrap this up with some customer quotes. The reason I use customer quotes for talking about some of the successes of Azure is I thought these ones really spoke to me. They really spoke to me, and I thought maybe I can help you guys understand, not from a specific scenario, but how Azure is helping businesses be more efficient, be innovative, and adjusting, using the technology to challenge their spot in the market, right? They're looking at taking market share, or they're looking at improving things and really being leaders leveraging Azure. And I think these quotes kind of speak to that. So this first one says, we successfully moved our data center out of our physical building and into a combination of Azure services. So that's really big to me, because they're talking about, you know, probably a $250,000 investment in a data center. And now they're saying, you know, we haven't necessarily shut that down, but all of those resources that we were running, those physical resources, we've actually now moved over to Azure, and this is what we saw. They're reducing the amount of hardware that they have to support and maintain. If you look back to that previous line item that I talked to you about here, you know, they're talking about reducing the cost of hardware failure costs, support of replacing that hardware. All of these line items is what they're talking about when they say support and maintain, while not removing the application. So they kept everything the same, right? They didn't change their line of business. They didn't say, oh my gosh, we have to get rid of, you know, QuickBooks Online and we have to go to something Microsoft. No, they stayed with the same applications. They just removed that need for all that hardware relies on. And then it says our custom applications move to Azure Platform as a Service, which, you know, that's kind of a techie term, but essentially moved all of that to, yeah, we'll just leave that alone. I don't think I want to go there. So anyway, that quote kind of spoke to me for that reason. So let's go to the next one here. So the second quote says, what we're talking about is delivering a degree of collaboration and visibility unheard of in the oil and gas industry. Once again, here's a business that's looking to the future and saying they're going to change the way that the oil and gas industry collaborates, as well as looks at their particular data in their industry. I mean, that's just a major shift. Not only is it a major industry, but it's a maybe a possibly disruptive approach to doing things in that industry. And that's all, you know, that type of thinking is because, as they say here in the second sentence, with sensors, software, and the cloud, these disparate assets can become a single resource, powered at its core by a rich flow of data. I mean, those, you know, so once again, just a very powerful, you know, kind of looking to the future, possibly disrupting an entire industry because of the cloud. And my third and final quote, I like this one because I'm a big fan of artificial intelligence. I think this is going to be a big movement in the next 12, most definitely 24 months for all of our businesses. But Cortana is on the cutting edge of that from Microsoft's perspective. The AI game is very interesting. So Microsoft Cortana intelligence capabilities are helping us filter the signal from the noise across large data sets. I'll kind of read through this whole thing and then come back to it. So we can focus on finding the real value in the data. Our vision of the future digital capability will need to aggregate many sources of data and provide a platform for collaboration with customers. So the way that I understand this quote is, here they're using this artificial intelligence type of technology to understand what their customers are saying, right? And you look at the name down there, this is Rolls-Royce. Right, but they're probably looking across the entire internet, and they're now using artificial intelligence to say, wait a minute, we don't care if they're saying these types of things, so they're going to filter that out because they call it noise, and they're going to focus on the most important pieces. So the technology is allowing them to focus on the most important messages. Therefore, they're going to be able to communicate and collaborate with their customers more efficiently. So to me, that, you know, once again, it's going to change the way Rolls-Royce sells. It's going to change how they go to market. It's probably going to change even how they build cars, because they're able to look across the internet and look at this data in such a way. So anyway, once again, my perception of the quote and its impact. And I think that brings us to 11:29. So I didn't leave much time for questions. You can always send me an email. Like, everyone on this call is associated to the WSAE Association, so feel free to always email me directly. This video will be available, like I said, within the next 24 hours online. And if you have any questions now, I'm available. I can stretch this a little bit. If not, then I will talk to you guys next time. Okay, thanks for your participation. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.